Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Depths, back with another Kamihime project video. Now, this one is the Valentine's event, so just a heads up, the characters that are in the gacha, the feature characters like Fire Tish, they are limited. So if you do not get them, it's going to be a while before they come back, because that's how the seasonal stuff works. But, anyways, there's also something else I should point out too. Those of you that have bought the Diablo's lottery gacha, they have done the results. Me, myself, I haven't gotten anything too special from those tickets. I basically got my money back because they kept giving me 3,000 jewels. I have seen some pictures where some people have won some pretty good stuff, though, where they had like 10,000 jewels, 50,000. I've heard one person got, like, I think 2 miracle tickets. But, there's a lot of different things from that one, so they've already done the randomized drawings or whatever, so you'll see the stuff in your inventory, but the tickets should be gone. But that's only if you happen to buy the Diablo's Gacha tickets a long while back. But anyways, this event, Valentine's event, it is going to be win based, so Fire has the advantage. And on top of that, it is a raid event, so if you are not strong enough to do things on your own, you can always jump into somebody else's raid to still get progress, so that's something to remember. The only thing you will probably not be able to do on your own until you are strong enough is the solo runs for extra tickets, which do not have to be done, so that's something to really keep in mind. Anyone can clear this event, even if you just start it today. So, the whole thing with this is that in order to get all the jewels from this event, you would have to start your own raids. Somebody else can come in and finish them for you, though. But it doesn't take much rank in order to be able to start them all. But you get materials from Standard. Use those materials from there to open up Expert. Use the materials you get from Expert to open up Ragnarok. And according to this list, it says it's rank 16 just to open up Ragnarok. But to be quite honest, you are probably not ready to fight those on your own at that point, or anywhere near it. So, you definitely will need help if you're opening these raids that early. But you do get magic jewels for clearing everything, and it counts as a clear even if you did not. The only thing you really have to do is open a raid and win. But if you want credit, just hit it once. That's all. Now, the thing about this event is that the standard is split between multiple enemies. So while they all have less HP, it is still a lot of enemies at once. And the thing you have to be careful about is that 2 of them can ability seal. One is an AoE ability seal, so for newer players, this is actually a pretty dangerous start, because having your ability seal is very, very painful. And one of them can do it roughly every other turn. So be very, very careful with that. And then on top of that too, they will put attack and defense down on people. So it doesn't exactly say when, and I haven't played the event myself just yet, so I don't know for sure, but it is a 4-turn debuff whenever it happens. Usually these triggers happen right out the gate, but this actually could be pretty dangerous for newer players. So if you are at a point where you can struggle against the standard difficulty, this can be very tricky for you. All I know is that the ones with the most orb count and the least orb count are the ones that will ability seal you, so be very, very careful, especially if that one with the 3 orbs. If that one gets it off, everybody will be ability sealed, so you will definitely want to be able to remove debuffs or just flat out block them. It's much better if you're capable of blocking them. Now then, this is where things get a little weird. The boss is actually chocolate. Yeah, I'm not making that up. But there's a gimmick for this fight. First off, the HP is actually lower than normal, because it's only 4 million. Normally there's about like 7 or maybe even 8 million. That's because the defense is 20. So that's one major gimmick with these 2 fights right here. the defense value is double the normal amount. I've just recently done a video that mentioned things about defense value. This is one of those enemies that do not have the regular 10 defense. So since it's 20 defense, you'll be dealing half the damage you normally would. Now, as for the attacks, it will randomly hit you and then cause blind for raging, or it will just hit one person and cause blind. So you will have some accuracy issues if you're not getting rid of that stuff, especially considering the fact that it is 2 turns, like 2 orbs before it uses either one of its bursts, so it can be pretty frequent. Another issue is the fact that there is a defense down thing that happens one time whenever its HP hits 60% or lower. And then if you the thing with the trigger is, like, if you get it to 15% or less HP, you will take 5,000 damage every other turn. Like, literally every turn you will take 5,000 damage. I don't know if it's AoE. I think it is AoE, because the Ragnarok one says AoE. Well, it says alone, so it's probably one target, but you will start taking a lot of damage, and for expert difficulty, that is a very huge chunk of damage, because generally people that are ready for expert may have around 10,000 HP or less. So if you're at a point where you're ready to solo expert, that's probably going to be a very dangerous one. And keep in mind, the solo for this is always our Kamihime, so they will have lower stats than what you're normally used to. So if you're going for that, be very wary of it. Now, that said, you're definitely going to want to remove debuffs. You're definitely going to want to be very, very careful of that trigger ability. When you get her to 15% HP or less, we have HP indicators on our stuff now. If you see that thing get very close to 15%, out the gate, just try to full burst and knock it down to 0 as fast as possible. So keep that in mind. Now, for Ragnarok, the HP is increased to 13.5 million. Normally it's about double that, about like 26 or 27 million. Essentially the same mechanics, only there is the defense down happens sooner. It's at like 80% HP to 56%, and it's only one time. Now, it will do it again. And that's where you'll have to be very careful, because it will hit even harder the second time. And then the worst thing happens again at 15% HP or less, where instead of 5,000 it's 10,000. It will do every single turn if you have no defenses, like no cuts or anything. So that's where you definitely want to be very, very careful. You will start taking quite a bit of damage once you start getting that boss below half HP, because it will put the defense down on you and hit you pretty hard at the same time. And then it can also hit you extremely hard every single turn. Like 10,000 damage is no joke, because for comparison, there is a future boss that we'll be able to fight up against called Atlas, and that's the opening attack for them. Only it's AoE, and you cannot do anything to defend against it. You will not be able to use cut or anything. You will flat out take 10,000 damage every single Hime against Atlas on the first turn. So, needless to say, you're going to want your HP pretty high, because this is like a smaller version of that, only it's going to happen every single turn and not AoE. So once that HP gets to 15% or less, rely on unloading as much damage as possible. It may not just be burst you want to save up at that point in this case, because the HP is actually quite a bit. You'll probably want to save up both bursts and all your ability damage, even buffs and debuffs, in order to shell out as much, because keep in mind the defense value is indeed double. So that's something to know. Now, a big thing with high defense enemies is the fact that skills that deal fixed damage tend to work out a little bit better. But unfortunately, there's not too many things that have access to it. Damage over time is a good way for it, but damage over time is usually quite low. There's only a few cases where you might actually get a good amount, and as far as I know, it's only from very specific characters or a 4th tier soul, which would be the S class one. So you probably won't have access to that type of stuff. The only way a player can have access to a 4th tier soul and still be pretty weak is if they bot the thing. So that's why I feel like I need to mention it. But it was Parcelis or something, I forgot her name, but she's like the S-class version of Mordred. She's got some strong damage over time, and Caspar, her stackable defense down is a flat 250,000. Period. You can have the worst stuff on her and she will still do that much damage. So, if she has enough snatch stack, she can do that every turn. But that's stuff to keep in mind. And I also feel I need to mention it just in case you're trying to solo, because remember, you don't when you solo Ragnarok, it is with an element, not rarity. So you have to have a specific element, and it never is advantage, but it's never disadvantage. I will go over that when we get further down. But as for the rewards, it's the same old stuff as before. You get divine souls and devil souls to get things. If you just care about getting the SSR stuff, 50 divine, 55 devil. You want the gacha tickets, 140 divine and 82 devil. You want the dragonic eye shards, 200 divine, 90 devil. You want all the magic jewels, 225 divine and 95 devil. And if you want to just do everything, then 250 divine and 100 devil. And keep in mind that you can indeed get divine souls from standard as well as expert. So literally no one should have any issue farming divine. Now the devil ones is what you may or may not have issues farming. It depends on when you can find grades that are opened up for that one if you can't do them yourself. So keep that in mind. And then the thing with Thunder Samuel too, they mentioned, is that her debuffs are very, very strong. However, it's a bit of a risk if you use her, because this is wind. Wind takes more damage. So if you happen to have her, by all means feel free to use her, but to really get the most out of her, that would also mean that if you use a Thunder team and they're weak against this element. So it's up to you if you want to take the risk. I probably wouldn't. Just stick to fire, really. And if you don't have a good fire team, then use the best team you have. That's all you really can do. But anyways, getting to what we're getting as rewards. First and foremost, the Idolan. This is a very interesting one because this is the first time, and I think the only time, we have seen an Idolan with this secondary effect. But the main effect she'll give is elemental attack for wind. Elemental Idolans are always highly valued for any sort of event or gacha, because you want the best you can get out of those. 40% is very standard at this rate, so the secondary effect is where it might matter the most, and that is a recovery boost. I don't know the exact amount, but this is free Ascension. And Ascension will increase your healing amount. Now, whether it increases the cap or not, I will go over that later, but this is the first time we have seen an Idolan capable of giving you elemental attack and Ascension, basically. Speaking of Ascension, this is where it might be interesting to use this weapon, but only 1 or 2 souls, I think, are capable of using arcane weapons. But this large assault SSR, pretty standard. Normally it's one. You don't want the 1 skill weapons at this point unless you don't have anything better, because there's a lot of 2 skill, and some of the 2 skills have 3 effects technically. So you may or may not want to deal with this one, especially since the Guardian weapons are actually pretty good. And then later down the line, I think we're getting really close to it, but later down the line, the ultimate catastrophes will also start dropping some SSR weapons that can final break as well, and they all end up having 2 skills when you final break them. So the fact that this can't final break is holding it back. But an interesting little trick is that if you want, you can put this on an Arcane Soul, and every time they burst, they act as a secondary healer. That's something I feel like I have to point out, because sometimes people don't necessarily use soul weapons for a soul, especially if they're pretty horrible. Some souls don't have good weapons. But the thing with this is that because of some burst effects, you may actually get some situational uses out of it. I mean, in my case, I can put a bow I've gotten, which is ironically from the Draconic Eyes, because it was something that was in the game a long time ago. But I got a bow that I can put on Yuri, and it will do the same thing where it'll just heal everybody. And sometimes I decide to do that because of the fact that Wynn does have some pretty fast characters. That means with Yuri combined, she can end up healing every single turn. I did the same thing for Shingen. So I kind of didn't feel a need to rush a weapon for those two, for Wind, because I had that bow. That's why I feel like I have to mention this, because sometimes these weapons do have some good effects. The fact that you can heal every burst, if you can get a very fast team, that can be very powerful. So I feel a need to mention that. Now, as for the other weapons, of course they're SR, so it's more of a case of just get them if you need them. And it says fire attribute character attack. That means basically assault for fire. The only thing is that Wind doesn't necessarily have too many axes or swords you want to go for, and then fire gun isn't all that great either. So honestly, if you're going for phantom weapon setups, you don't need any of these weapons. Literally. Not even a Wind arcane one, because of the fact that there are arcane ones you can grind out, they're just not all that good. But you may or may not want them. It depends on how far you are in the game. Not to mention, it's a niche effect, but being able to heal on burst is actually pretty useful if done right. So if you know what you're doing, you can actually pull off some pretty good stuff with that. Now, the element that you're supposed to use in order to clear that Ragnarok solo I mentioned before, Dark Element. So it doesn't matter if you use R, Kamihime, SR, SSR, you have to use dark characters for Ragnarok if you plan to solo for the raid tickets. If you plan to solo expert for the raid tickets, use any element, but they have to be R Kamihime, which is generally best done with fire, and they have a pretty good, I think they do have, if you have access to it, like some R Kamihime are capable of debuffing, so you may or may not be able to hit the defense cap in order to maximize your damage. So fire R Kamihime might actually help you with that one. Now then, there is 2 things I need to look up, and the first and foremost one, we get a free Kamihime every time a raid event pops out. So this is who we're getting. She was originally R, and she was originally water too. She now has an SR fire version, and this is Kushinata. Now, what she tends to do is tends to go on the protection side, but it looks like she may have a bit of self-healing. Now, the protection, depending on when you use it, and if you have anybody else that can sip and put a damage immunity on someone, this could come in handy. It depends on the timing. Not to mention, she is stacking her defense every time she uses abilities, so keep that in mind. But what she can do is put a protect on herself for one ability, and then go basically 3 turns while drawing attention to herself and regenerating. And then it looks like the third skill, it looks like it will heal every time it's used, but it will It will do poison damage. So that's another damage over time. And honestly, damage over time, like I said earlier, it's not too great because it tends to be like in like 2,000-3,000 range, maybe 4,000. Some characters can get it much higher, like 6-digit range, but they're hard to come across. So again, you may or may not need this. It depends, but it's still free damage. It adds up over time, but it's not as much as you would want it to be. The main gimmick for her is just being able to protect everybody. So if you want her to soak up damage, then by all means use that. So there'll be some very niche skills about using her, but I can't really see her getting too much use in the main team. Maybe just something like Tower, which is coming up, by the way. That's something I have to mention. We have Tower coming up. It is a Wind Tower. This is an SR Fire Kamihime. So you may end up using her. Now, going into the Idolan. This is just to double check and see if the recovery actually ups the cap as well. Which it does indeed seem like it is yeah, upper limit. So that means it will increase the cap as well. So I don't know exactly how much, but the attack down when you summon her can be 10%, so it may or may not help. It depends. Generally, most people can easily get 40% attack down if they tried, so that can be your remaining 10%. But it does increase the healing cap. So what that means is the fact that it should help you heal more per cast, but also increase the cap. And the weird thing about that is that, say you have one thing of Ascension, it will give a cap increase of, say, like maybe 34%, but the amount would only be like 5%, because each healing thing you have in a game goes by a percentage of the HP you have, but there's still a limit to how much it can heal, and that's where the cap comes in. The healing amounts are pretty generous. Some of them are like 50% or so. The caps are not, and they tend to be very, very low. Like the AoE caps tend to be like 2,000 or less. So this will up those a little bit more. That's something to keep in mind. But anyways, that's all for this. More of this is going to come soon, and like I just said, Tower is coming soon. It should be either in the middle of this event or after it, because looking at the list, it is the next one showing up. In fact, I can pull that up right now. Or better yet, I could just hit the back button and it'll send me there. Okay. So I'm looking at it right now. This is like a list of different things that pop up. I've been using it quite a bit on this Japanese wiki. We're right here at this chocolate factory thing. The next tower is literally around the corner. We will see it within a week. So that said, that SR Kamihime can help you with a little bit of tower progress, because you want Fire Kamihime for this next tower. That said, get any preparations you can for Fire, because that is going to be the bulk of the tower. Most of the tower prizes come from being on element, and that's why it's very important to try and raise all of your elements, because tower and guild competition are the only ways, at least right now, the only ways where players can comfortably get SSR break limit items. As in the items that let you break limit any SSR weapon or Idolan you want, depending on which item you use. So it is very important to raise all 6 of your elements just for those 2 events, if anything else. And later on we'll get even more reasons. So focus on a main element, but don't neglect stuff for other elements as well. But anyways, that's all for this. More of this is going to come soon. And also, those of you who are wondering, I did record a Labyrinth video. I just have not uploaded it yet. It's up to you guys if you want to see it or not, because it's the same old stuff usually. I blow through Labyrinth so easily now. that it literally does not take me more than one turn, if that, to clear a floor, even the higher ones. So, again, it's up to you. Mention it in the comments. If I see enough people saying, okay, put the video up, I might even do a voting thing, then yeah. But Labyrinth, I kind of don't feel a need to really record too much on, but I could. Speaking of which, we do have another Labyrinth one away. We're looking at this list, so there's that. But anyways, that's all for this. More of this comes soon, and take care.